First of all, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. I know you have been going like full speed since January 1st, so I appreciate your time. You have been the mayor now for 31 days under Portland's new form of government. How's it going so far?
I think it's going well. I'm pleasantly surprised at where we're at. You know, you run a campaign and in a lot of ways you're hoping you have your plan right. But now the second week after the election just launched fast by meeting with Chair Vega-Peterson, our elected officials, meeting with Mayor Wheeler. And so we really were able to develop that campaign promise into campaign goals, and then we were able to hit the ground running on that day one. We've opened shelters, we're adjusting the budget. We have some community team building programs that we built or we've added here in the City Hall, and now we're here getting ready to announce another shelter in the new month. So we're right on target. We're ahead of schedule, if you will. So exciting.
Aside from the issues that the city has to deal with, coming into this job, what was the thing that you were the most excited about and you were the most nervous about?
Wow. Well, certainly it's the awestruck nature of coming in and running a massive enterprise and wondering where the culture is. So I come from a high-performing, high-standards operation that I built. Culture is high. Everybody knows what's expected from one another. I didn't know what to expect coming into the halls. The biggest surprise was we have a high-performing city already. What we're doing now is through leadership is creating those best practices and goals. I didn't see a clear mission in the city. And so you have a lot of good people working, not often in tandem. And without that, then you're pulling in different directions. We now have a city that has a clear mission. We know we're dealing with things that are going to take us off that mission occasionally. But I'm thrilled with the team we have. I'm thrilled with my colleagues on council. We have everything we need to succeed.
Would you say it's working better than from what you saw on the outside? In other words, do we have a marketing problem as far as like the city that works? A lot of people say, oh, the city doesn't work. Does that bother you? Especially now that you're serving as mayor.
I'm glad you asked that. That's right. We are the city that works. We need to stay with that mantra. All we were doing is we're not firing. You know, we have all the resources. We have everything we need to succeed. I just see us not firing on all those cylinders. But with the new change of form of government, now you have a mayor or a CEO. You have a great city administrator in Michael Jordan or our chief operating officer. We have everything we need to fire. All we need is that vision and that mission, and that's what I'm providing. So I'm not disheartened about where we're at or the circumstances. I'm excited about tomorrow, and we're delivering on that already.
Let's talk about how you got to City Hall. First, why? A lot of people watching this are probably going to think, why would anyone want that job, especially now?
You know, it comes from who I am, and you know, I'm Portland through and through. I went to a concert with my first grade classmate on Wednesday. So I mean, this is who I am. These are my neighbors. I'd say we have about 1 to 2 degrees separation of everybody in this city. But if you want to know why I arrived here, my brother was homeless 20 years ago, suffered from mental illness and addiction. My parents and I had the ability to care for him, and I'm still caring for him today. 6 years ago, I'm operating one of the highest performing transportation companies in the nation, and I look around the city and I didn't recognize it anymore. I see people living and suffering and dying on our streets. I jumped in, started learning how I can help, and it just led me from one step to the other, and that led me to be mayor. But I want you to know, it hasn't changed. I ran into a high school classmate last Thursday, suffering mental illness and unsheltered homelessness. I was doing what's called a homeless count. Do you see? My North Star hasn't changed. If anything, I'm more galvanized, more serious, more focused on caring for Portland because these are my neighbors and my friends I grew up with.
Let's talk about how you grew up, born and raised in Portland. While people have joked that you look a lot like Ted Wheeler, you are very different. You have very different backgrounds. He's the heir to a timber fortune. He went to Stanford, Columbia, Harvard. You're the first person in your family to attend college, right? Portland Community College, Oregon State, the University of Portland. How do you think that childhood, that life shaped who you are today?
Oh, it's formative. But I want to go back to your first question about Ted Wheeler. Yes, we kind of look alike. In fact, I keep joking that Ted left his 3/4 zips in his closet, and I'm just continuing to wear them. So if we look alike,
he gave you his wardrobe.
If we look and dress alike, Sorry about that, but it is what it is. No, there are a lot of differences. I
But
think
you come from a working class
Yeah.
neighborhood in North Portland. So how did that help shape who you are?
Yeah, I've always been driven. I run hot. My mother and father, great people. You know, my father was an orphan. Mom never knew her father. They found each other, an incredibly strong relationship. They built an incredibly strong nucleus around our neighborhood. My father, no, my brothers graduated from high school. I did, so that's the first milestone. I put myself through college, jumped on a plane and started my career in New York City, traveled around the world, came back here because this is the best city in the world. And so I wanted to really make and stake my claim here, and succeeded from a professional standpoint. And then I firmly expect with the city's help and my colleagues to succeed as mayor as well. But you're right, we are very different, both driven, but definitely hard scrabble on my part. You know, nothing really given, but if somebody did give me something, advice or opportunity, I took it. And that's what really led me to this opportunity to interview with you today.
You say, you know, you're connected 1 or 2 degrees from everyone. I live in North Portland.
Yep.
My son plays at McCoy Park and Charles Jordan every
Yep.
day, all summer. My husband teaches at the University of Portland. I know that neighborhood, and I know how special that neighborhood is.
That's right.
And it seems like you're still very connected
Yeah.
to the folks in that neighborhood.
See, 1 degree of separation. You talk about Charles Jordan. That was the first memory I had in my life doing childcare on the old gym's floor, having my nap time. Do you see, we're really, really tied together. And now I still work in the community in North Portland. I work with young, I work with empowering young black men into a leadership role. You know, in fact, I have an event tonight. Those are the young men that I grew up with, that I saw struggle, that I want to try and help with today. I got lucky in some cases, but I'm going to try and reduce luck into opportunity for those individuals. So I might be working with your son at some point as well.
Are you talking about Word is Bond?
That's right.
He won the 4-on-4 basketball tournament.
Oh, is that right?
This summer with his friends.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. So now that you're mayor, though, are you concerned at all that you can't give as much to an organization like Word is Bond?
Oh no, being mayor is a superpower. I'm going to the Word is Bond event tonight, and I told Lakiana, the executive director, no matter the events you have, I'm still coming, even if it's 5 minutes. I want to lend my star to making his star great. You see, Lakiana is a young black person, a young black man. He's going to be our mayor someday. So my job is to continue to mentor everybody in Portland, the next future mayor. That is my job, is to always train the next man up to make the next great voice succeed, and we do that by giving back what opportunities we have today.
Did you ever think growing up you would be in this position? When did you start thinking seriously about getting into politics?
6 years ago, and let's go back to answer your first. Absolutely not. Had no desire for politics. Always interested, always driven, always focused on private and private enterprise, but never politics. But the more and more I kept trying to talk to our political officials, our legislators, about opportunities and needs and understanding the why, you know, I was seeing certain things they didn't. You know, a lot of them aren't professionally trained in either business or process development or systems. And I kept working, and I kept getting to roadblocks. And so to get around the roadblock, it required me to get more and more involved. And then I realized the mayor is the one position that operationally allows us to implement those priorities into the city. To be a counselor as a legislator, really important to be a policy maker, but we needed somebody who was going to operationalize and action these very important priorities, and the mayor and the mayoral position was that.
You ran for city council in 2020 and you lost to Mingus
Terribly.
Maps. Were you discouraged?
No. In fact, I was encouraged. I had a political advisor, her name is Paige Richardson. She's brilliant. She and I lost, and we took maybe 30 minutes to lick our wounds. We took my platform priorities, and then we started implementing them. So we ran several bills in the state legislature, passed one unanimously through committee. The homelessness portion, we continued to work to set up nonprofits. We never quit. In fact, it emboldened us to continue to work because the community was encouraged. COVID shortcutted us. I still had to run my business, so I had to step back and step down. But no, that loss gave us the energy we needed to work 4 years hard to then deliver to Portland what we're expecting this year.
What you're describing is grit, and it takes a lot of grit to do any of these jobs.
Yep.
Do we need more of that in this city?
Yeah, we have it. We just don't have that sort of vision or mission that we need to really work through. Here's what I'll tell you, Angelica. What's really exciting is when I meet with the governor, county officials, state officials, county, city colleagues, they're all excited. I can feel the hope in the city when I walk on the streets, when I talk to people. They just want to see ideas and idealism actualized and put into action, and that's what we're doing here. So I hope you can feel that sort of temperature in the city where, wow, maybe there's that opportunity, the hope, and I can feel that renewed. Now, let's not lose the momentum. It's a sense of urgency. I'm going to galvanize everybody and continue to move with the plans that we have.
So you lose this election, you bounce right back.
Yeah.
Is that when your obsession with ending homelessness began? Can I call it an obsession? Because it kind of seems like you're obsessed with ending homelessness.
I think I would call it more of a plan. You see, we have to end unsheltered homelessness to then focus on reducing the burden on public safety, because 40% of all fatalities are homeless now, or our police are being called out. 40% of all firefighter call-outs are unsheltered. Do you see they're overburdened? And that manifests itself in a 24-minute priority 1 call time for our police officers now. It was 6 minutes 10 years ago. Do you see, I have to address that from a systems. That's the one thing that's taking so many resources out of our community. Restore and reduce the burden on our public safety system. Revitalize this extraordinary city. You see, it's a systems approach, but it's the first thing I must do to address the next iterative process.
You ran on the promise of ending unsheltered homelessness within a year. It's very ambitious. Some
Yeah.
people called you crazy.
Yeah.
Now that you've been in office for a month and you've seen the inner workings of Portland city government, are you concerned about that goal? Do you still think we can get that done?
Angelica, I'm more emboldened than ever. I'm more hopeful, and I'm more certain it's going to happen now. The outpouring of support, the first meeting I took was from the business community, and they offered 40 facilities for potential shelters. We have an announcement next week. You're going to be so excited about this next iterative process to the sheltering plan we're adding. We had a private building owner of micro apartments call us last week and say, I have 215 units, we want in. It is no longer about me just pushing that rock up the hill. We're there, we're order takers now. We're on the downhill slope of just talking to the community, and everybody's excited and interested in moving Portland forward. So I will tell you, where you would think I would feel more daunted this moment that I have the job, it's absolutely 180 degrees. I'm more encouraged and emboldened to make sure that we are going to deliver on that.
It sounds like a lot of these people in the business community feel like you felt 6 years ago, but now
Yeah.
they have someone to bring them together. Is that what's going on
I
here?
think it's not just business, it's community-based organizations.
nonprofits.
I brought in 50 of our largest homeless service providers 2 weeks ago and had a conversation. What do you need? We're galvanizing them, and next week we are setting up another meeting with them because they're the ones who are going to actualize. We're asking them, what do you want? And we're centering what their needs are because they're the ones we're going to need to deliver on that, and they're excited.
Let's talk about your strategy.
Sure.
Explain it to people when they say, how are we going to do this in 1 year? How is it going to work?
To simplify it, we're going to set up a network of nighttime emergency shelters. Other shelters, if somebody wants to provide a 24-hour shelter, you'll see the next one we add. We're going to add the facilities we need because that's the missing link. That's the first inning. We're going to augment it with day centers. So somebody who may have life-saving needs at night, we still need to find out what their need is. Is it a ride home? Is it treatment referral for mental or drug addiction? Third, we're going to take and relieve the pressure on our households and our businesses so they can succeed. Enforce our community safety laws, no tent camping, no RVs, no makeshift shelters. All of that takes the pressure off of our homeless service providers to then provide the long-term homeless services and the long-term housing we need. We have to take that pressure off the system. So that's kind of that 1, 2, 3 approach that we need to address unsheltered homelessness.
Why do you think night shelters are so important? I know we sort of
Yeah.
moved away from that several
We
years
did.
ago in the city. We didn't want to see the long lines of people
Yep.
waiting to get into a shelter at night. Why is it so important to bring that back?
So I've researched the last many years most of the cities in the United States, so they all have certain data points. We found that cities that relied upon or used nighttime shelters to augment their system. Keep in mind, it's not the holistic approach. It's only one of 4 parts. You need nighttime emergency shelters so nobody has to sleep on the street at night. Augmented with 24-hour shelters, of which we have 3,000 of, with transitional housing and then permanent housing. Ours is missing. If you go to Boston, they have all 4. If you go to Philadelphia or Boise or Rockford, Illinois, or Gulfport, Mississippi, they all have a series of those resources. We closed or defunded ours starting in 2017. We elected to do that through a philosophy. All we're doing is we're adding that back up, that very important segment, and that's going to allow us to make sure nobody has to suffer and die on the streets at night.
And you visited those cities, many
Yeah.
of them. Is that how you came up with this plan?
Oh yeah. So President Obama's point person for homelessness is Mark Johnston. He's helped me for years, the mayor of Boise. I've had several conversations with Mayor Landrieu in New Orleans, who went from 8,000 unsheltered down to 1,000 in 24 months. So it's just about it. These best practices are out there. Go and find the best one, shamelessly steal it, and bring it back to Portland and get going.
And that's how you started Shelter Portland?
That's exactly, yeah. If you look at the Leadership Council on Shelter Portland, Congresswoman Dexter's a part of it, Mayor of Boise's a part of it, Mark Johnson. We brought in some of the national leaders, many of which who have ended on shelter homelessness. So this isn't a promise. This is just simply a boilerplate that other communities are using that we're not.
When do you think Portland started making the mistakes that left us in this crisis?
I think it was an ideology that we really wanted to focus on. We wanted to provide 24-hour care, and it sounds great, but when you go from a nighttime shelter to a 24-hour shelter, you've tripled your cost and didn't add 1 bed. And then we reduced some of the requirements. We reduced our stay limits, which were 90 days, and we extended it to 2 years. There's no engagement requirements for somebody in a shelter. There's no bed utilization, so you don't even, in some cases, some shelters, you don't even have to sleep in the bed. Like my neighbor Elizabeth is in a tent outside of a shelter. She's addicted to fentanyl, and so her dealer's in the next tent. She also keeps a bed at a shelter. She doesn't sleep in it. She just has to check in every 72 hours, and so she gets food, laundry, and showers there. And she doesn't use the bed, so that's taking a bed from somebody in absolute life-saving need. So you'd see the structural changes, but everybody's working to change it back. We're having deep conversations with county, with council, with the governor. We're all working to make those changes back to a more rational system that flows through back and forth on that continuum based on that person's needs.
How big of a roadblock is the fentanyl crisis in trying to solve our homeless crisis?
I will tell you, it is a huge roadblock, but I want you to know these are people. In the 80s, we ended unsheltered homelessness. Mayor Clark, my predecessor, did. He suffered with fortified wine and heroin. In the 90s, it was crack. We still didn't have this epidemic in the 90s. When we had 1,700 people living on the street in 2017, 5,398 people suffering unsheltered today. What's changed in that one period of time? We started defunding and closing our nighttime shelters. Now let's add them back, but it's not just nighttime shelters. We need day centers. We need to really focus on our 24-hour shelters and the transitional housing. Let's let people know when you get in the system, we're here to help you. But we can't help you if you're in a tent on the sidewalk.
How long do you think it's going to take Portland to get out of this?
Well, December 1st, we know it's going to be winter again. We're not. Angelica, this last 14 days, we've handed out 3,100 tarps to our suffering individuals in 28-degree weather. We've handed out 700 tents, and we've handed out 700 sleeping bags. Winter's coming again on starting December 1st. You know it, I know it, the community knows it. We're gonna act because we're not gonna let 5,000 of our neighbors suffer on the streets next year by handing them out a piece of plastic and having them use that for life-saving care. That is inhumane, it is cruel, it is not what Portland is. It does not match our values as a Portlander. These are our neighbors, care for your neighbors, and what do you know? You care for the whole community entirely.
Should the county stop handing out those winter supplies?
They, as I've spoke to, they don't have any other resources, so I'm working with them to stand up. They're gonna be great partners. They've been great partners. They will be great partners. I've been having deep discussions with County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson, and we're really harmonizing our goals. There's a great program with the Homeless Response Action Plan. It's to reduce homelessness, unsheltered homelessness 50%. Let's go. I'm all in with helping her. And I'm asking for her to help me with the other 50%, so we don't choose who gets shelter and who doesn't, because they're Portlanders.
You know that relationship between the county and the city, particularly when it comes to homelessness, has been strained. You're confident that it's improving.
Angelica, we need to stop pointing fingers at others and just get the hard work done. The community members don't have to see the struggles and the arguments we're having behind closed doors. That's for us. They just need to see action. They're tired of being told what we're going to do. It's time for us just to go do it, and that's what we're doing. And Jessica, Chair Vega-Peterson, she's committed to helping along that journey.
Livability is obviously a huge issue for Portlanders. It has been for several years, so let's talk about that. What do you say to Portlanders who are just so frustrated, not just with homelessness, but blight, graffiti, crime? What is the city doing to turn all those things around so people are proud of their city again?
Yeah, well, I go back to that number one priority is it's difficult to be hopeful in your city when you're walking down the street and you see someone incapacitated on the curb. That can't be normalized. That shows us that we're helpless, that we're not guiding ourselves and they're not governing ourselves. And I stole that from Mayor Katz, by the way. But that's her point, and that was our point. We cannot show the world that we're helpless. Let's counter it by addressing those blighted things. But it's already happening. You look at the Portland airport. I mean, people fly in and they say, wow, this is brilliant. Our James Beard Market, which is going in next year. The 82nd Avenue redevelopment project, the downtown redevelopment project. We have everything we need. Now let's galvanize that investment, but making sure we address our most vulnerable. That will help us address all the other things that are associated with it, like property crime and nuisance crimes. Those all come to when you have people living on the street. Address that. It'll address the other associated illnesses, and then we get our city back onto the hopeful sort of that beacon on the top of the hill that we've always had.
My colleague Steve Dunn has talked to a man named Michael Corey, who goes around the city cleaning up graffiti on his own. I know a lot of people are doing so much to try and make this city a better place to live. He was frustrated because he reached out, he wrote letters to just about every politician he could think of, and he reached out to Steve and said, Mayor Wilson actually called me. I think you called him, right? Why did you decide to respond to him, and can you share with us what you told him?
Michael Corey is one of those deep, fundamentally Portland stories. He goes out on his own and he addresses graffiti. We need thousands and tens of thousands of Michael Coreys, and we have them. I wanted to just thank him because I wanted to say, I see how much you're working and how hard, and I wanted to validate him because imagine how frustrated and hopeless he must feel. Fixing a graffiti thing, only coming back to see it was redone, but he never quit, and I'm never gonna quit, and Portland doesn't quit. What I want everybody to know is if you're the Michael Coreys, continue doing it. Sweep your curbs outside of your house. Pick up the paper on your street. Don't just pick up the paper in your community. I call it community plus one. Do your community and go 1+, and we create a chain link fence of support for one another. And then we slowly see our city come back, but we do it together rather than just me, because I'm just one person. I can't do it alone. I need absolutely all 650,000 of us rowing in the same direction, and I'm going to make sure my budget priorities match up that. So we're funding graffiti, we're funding RV removals, we're funding all those things to just really help Portland come back to do it. So let me just say thank you, Michael. Outstanding job, appreciate it, and really impressive.
Let's talk about public safety. The Portland Police Bureau presented its crime reduction plan a few weeks ago. More data gathering, better metrics to measure how things are going, more partnerships within government and outside of government. Do you think that the Bureau is on the right track, or do you want to see more?
I've had the great pleasure of working and now getting to know Chief Day. What an extraordinary person. His level of hopefulness, passion, and desire exactly matches mine. So he's not just a cliche where he says it, he earns it. This past Sunday, because of the immigration concerns, he told me he was going to an impromptu community meeting. I said, can I go with you? We're peas in a pod. Go where that concern and chaos is. He's the right guy. So it takes a great leader to implement those changes. That's not just a piece of paper he put out. That was more of his mission to deliver to Portland. And we're going to make sure that those budget priorities are listed in my budget. We're going to move it forward, and he's going to actualize it. I will tell you, and I want Portlanders to know, we have the right person at the right time to really help the renaissance that we all want and desire.
I want to talk about the budget, unfortunately for you. Portland is facing a massive budget deficit, potentially $100 million, way more than what we expected, which was, I think, $27 million. You inherited this problem, I know, but how did it balloon so much? People are probably watching this thinking, how does that even happen?
Yeah, Yeah, we had been told it was 27 million, and that was based on what the knowledge was last year. Now with union contracts, with staffing for the council and my offices, which we need because we weren't being responsive to the citizens, with priorities that we've brought in. I've been interviewing my colleagues on council with their priorities, bringing those in, learning and adding those to it. So that represents all of our priorities. Now we're doing the hard work of finding out how we can make the city easier, better, faster, and at lower cost. We're delivering it, but we're already making huge strides. So there's not a day that goes by where I don't have 1 or 2 budget meetings. The more I learn about the enterprise, and we're starting to really focus on the streamlining, the better off we are. So we'll hit our budget, and we can deliver core services well by structuring the city to meet those needs. So I'm not disheartened. You know, we knew it was going to be tough.
But you have to craft the next fiscal budget for the
Yep.
city. Where are we going to see those cuts? Because the money's not there, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're deep into it right now. You know, it's February 1st. City attorney will provide his guidance to council on the 28th. We're deep into it. Again, there's not a day that we don't go by, and we've started bringing our counselors into it to start gaining their knowledge so we can really craft a holistic approach with all 13 of us at the table. So
Looking for areas that might be bloated where you can reduce?
you'll see some big swings.
Yeah.
But big swings that result in a faster delivery of services to our citizens, right? So it's not big swings just to cut staff. It's big swings to really focus on delivering on core services. So it's that next iterative process of us going from a commission-based form of government with 5 mini-mayors to single mayor in a more vertical, streamlined approach.
Katu obtained a memo that said these cuts could come from public safety, police, fire, 911.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to be really troubling for people to hear.
Yeah. So when I, first couple days, some of the counselors said, we think the entire enterprise should go through this exercise. I admire their...
That means every bureau?
Yep, and I acknowledge their point. There's no harm in looking at where you can make something, work better. So I brought the chief in as well as our public safety department and said, let's go look at it. Let's see what it would look like. Does it mean it's going to make that future budget priority? I don't know. We're going to look at it, but we still owe everybody an honest look at the entire operation, right?
So nothing's off the table at this point.
Well, nothing's off the table, but again, I want you to go back to my key 3 priorities. Ending unsheltered homelessness, reducing the burden on our public safety system. Nothing in that says you start cutting public safety officials. It's actually quite counter to that. We should be adding police officers and adding firefighters and adding funding to Portland Street Response. Nothing should be taken away. If anything, we should be adding. But I can acknowledge the counselors and their desire to look underneath the hood. That's their prerogative. And so to build relationships, I have to, I think the more we look at the enterprise with different eyes, the better off we are.
You touched on this earlier, how we can keep people in Portland.
Yeah.
Businesses, taxpayers, they're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
They're frustrated and they're leaving, and the city's losing money. I mean, that combined with inflation and other factors, the new form of government. So what can we do? What's being done to retain those people so we don't lose that tax base?
Yeah, you've already seen it. You've seen us really start to focus on the livability of the city writ large. We have to also acknowledge that the city is hurting right now. And to your point, let's put it to numbers. There's an indicator called the Urban Land Institute. It's a gauge of livability, investments, real estate values, economic development. We're 80th out of 81 cities in the United States. We're one from dead last of the major cities. 7 years ago, we were third. We were the 3rd most livable city 7 years ago. What's changed? Nothing. This is self-inflicted. We have everything we need. We have the sky, the weather, the water, the European small streets. So let's just get back to basics, not leaving people on the street, restoring our public safety, and we're going to have, and those families will really restore cleanliness and safety, and we're going to welcome an influx of investment, jobs, and households that we've always done for 40 years prior.
How are we going to fix Portland's reputation, the city's PR problem?
First of all, fix the product. I had some people that I ran against as far as opponents that said, I'm going to go to all the cities and sell Portland. Here's what we need to do. Fix the product, right? let's be proud and hopeful when we walk down the streets. We can't go out and have a marketing campaign to say we're the best city in the nation if someone visits and goes, oh my gosh, yeah, and they land at this extraordinary airport and then are driving down the street and say, look at that human misery and the cruelty I see. That has to stop. So let's just do the hard work of caring for our neighbors. And you know what? The city sells itself. Give me a year or two and I'll be that person going to the other cities selling this hopeful product. But right now, let's get in. It's steel-toed boot time. It's time to get our brooms. It's time to care for our neighbors. It's time to open up those shelters. And let's just get back to that restoring the dignity and decency that Portland's always been known for generations.
How is your background as a business leader helping you do that?
I'm a 24/7 guy. You know, let me tell you, Angelica, somebody told me, oh my gosh, you're going to be woken up at 2 a.m. in the morning with emergencies. And I looked at him and I said, just 2 o'clock? Because I'm used to getting woken up at 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning. So my point is I've done the hard work. I'll continue to do the hard work. I'm going to continue to show up. And everybody else, I'm happy to say, they are as well.
Let's talk about the unions and the city negotiating with these city employees. Mm-hmm. Good news this week that the
Very
largest union,
yep.
But you still do have an issue to work out with, what, about 200 city employees?
Yeah.
How's that going? Are you concerned about that?
I think it's going great. You know, we were close to a deal a month or so ago. I'm confident that our union negotiating team will as well. They're good people. They're trying to build trust. It's a new day, new council. I understand the uncertainty, but they do great work, and we're focused on bringing them back with a great contract that they can be proud of, that we can both be proud of.
Managers and supervisors are coming back to the office.
Mm-hmm.
Not the rest of city employees full-time for now, but eventually?
We'll wait and see. Our focus, why we didn't bring all the staff back yet, is we got to deliver on our priorities. So I didn't want to have any negotiations with unions that are knocking us off target. The priority is our vision, but let's just talk about the numbers. 60% of employees since the first day of pandemic are new or in new jobs. The previous 5 years to that was 36%. We have a new form of government, a new mayor, new city council. We don't know each other. And so we had to come back to build that collaboration, that camaraderie, to build the relationships so we can be a high-functioning, high-performing, high-standards enterprise to deliver core services for Portlanders. And that's what we're doing.
Can I have you respond to President Trump's push for deportations? I know Portland's a sanctuary city. People are still worried.
Yeah.
How can you reassure them that they're safe here?
First of all, the governor is absolutely in lockstep with Portland. We are a sanctuary state. We are a sanctuary city. What I want to do is just try and take that chaos that we're receiving and let everybody know that immigrant or not, you know, as our state and city goes, we're built on immigrants. That's our DNA. We're not going to abandon our care and concern for Portlanders. If you're here, you're a Portlander, our job is to care for you, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So my commitment to immigrants, which we have, you know, over 100,000 of them in Oregon. They're our neighbors, they're our families, they're on our sports teams. We're not abandoning our ideals. Those are our values, and we're not going to abandon our neighbors in their time of need. Absolutely not.
It's still too early to ask if you're running for re-election. You've been on the job for a month. But where do you see the city of Portland in 4 years? What's your hope for the future of the Rose City?
I talked to the director of the Rose Festival, and I said, in June of 2026, we're going to have a huge party because we're going to deliver on these core services. Let's get to June 2026. Let's celebrate the Rose Festival for our renaissance. And let's not talk about 4 years when we need to be focused on the next 4 months and the next 10 months. Let's focus on the priorities. Those things take care of themselves, but I want everybody galvanized this year. We're not going to punt to next year what we should be doing this year. Let's succeed on our priorities, and I need everybody's help to pull this off.
Last question.
Mm-hmm.
What is your best of playbook when it comes to the city of Portland? When you go to other places and they say, what are your favorite things to brag about? When you have visitors, where do you take them? You know, is it Powell's? Is it Washington Park? Is it, what's your favorite thing in Portland?
Pioneer Courthouse Square has 15 million visitors a year, and I was just meeting with the tribes, Native Americans, and I said, you know, we're not doing enough in that living room. That's the best place in Portland, and so that's where I want it to be, our living room. In fact, here's a great thing. Right after the election, I'm friends with a in a county commissioner in Umatilla County. And he said, Keith, I'm bringing a truckload of watermelons in September to Portland, and we're getting back to doing our seed spitting contest. And I said, you're on. Let's get Portland's mojo back, because the rest of the 35 counties want us to succeed. And so let's bring Oregon back to Portland and make it the living room, not for Portland, but for Oregon.
Thank you. Thanks
You're
for your
welcome.
time.
My pleasure.
It was